It's time for Team Venom to cross the line.
Hi folks, welcome to a special edition of Talking TNA. This episode is a huge blast from the past one. I know we've put a few archive footage on previous episodes. This is a massive one. So what we're basically going to do is we're going to go through some footage from 2014, where I was very fortunate and gifted an opportunity to sit down with new TNA signing at the time, MVP. Now this wasn't his first tenure. He'd previously been in TNA under the name Antonio Banks. But at this point, it was a few years after he'd left WWE. He'd been in New Japan and been the IWGP Intercontinental Champion, and had just debuted shortly after AJ Styles had left Impact. So, anyway, we're going to put it in its entirety and catch you soon.
Firstly, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. Considering your status as one of the top names in TNA at the moment, what brings you to the UK?
I'm here for PCW, this Preston City Wrestling.
Yeah.
They've reached out to me a number of times to come out, but I don't take very many indie bookings. And Chris Masters, as a matter of fact, the one who kind of interceded on their behalf, and said, "Man, it's a great promotion." And I've never heard anything but good things about Preston City Wrestling and all the talent. And I know a number of guys on out for it. So I said, all right, anytime I have an excuse to come over to the UK, it's one of my favorite places in the world, London, and of course I'm a lifelong Manchester United supporter, so I get to come hang out in the Republic of Mancunia.
Just over the road from the stadium as well, isn't it? So
Yeah. Been there a number of times too, so it's a good trip. So yeah, I came out for PCW, Pints and Clunge.
Fair enough. With regards to your TNA debut, which was obviously a few months back during the Maximum Impact tour, you were revealed as the mystery investor and instantly put in the position to fill the void that was left by Sting, Hogan and AJ Styles, who obviously prior to you coming along with the top three faces. And since then you've been consistently the highlight of Impact Wrestling. With regards to your other debut in the WWE, where you were shot straight into a main event level feud with The Undertaker, and then the lengthy run as US Champion, which debut do you think was better for you? And which one are you more happy with?
Well, they're just two very different chapters in my career. And the words that you use to fill the void of Hulk Hogan, Sting, and AJ, there's no way. I'm not that guy. You know, I don't. I certainly don't fill the void left by those gentlemen. But I believe that I do bring something along, something fresh and new that viewers can hopefully enjoy. As far as the debut in Glasgow, it was a triumphant return. You know, anytime you get that kind of a response from the audience, and it was humbling. You know, because I'd been off of TV for a little over 2 years, and to get that kind of reception was spectacular. And regarding my debut at WWE, that was the beginning of my mainstream professional career. So it's kind of comparing apples and oranges. You know, they were both very special in their own way. But at this stage of my career, at this point, I just want to have fun.
Yeah.
Before it was about trying to cement myself and make my way in. And I'm very happy that so far my professional wrestling career has been on my terms. I left the WWE on my terms. I left New Japan on my terms. I signed with TNA on my terms. And I'll probably leave again on my terms. So I hope that answered your question.
That's brilliant, thank you. With regards to obviously your time in New Japan, you've held the United States Championship twice, the Tag Team Championship once in WWE, and then with the inaugural IWGP Intercontinental Champion. Which of your title reigns was your favourite, and which ones meant the most to you?
That's again, it's they're different chapters of my career. I remember walking into catering once in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that evening, if I recall correctly, it was myself and Edge in a tag team match against Ric Flair and Batista, the main event. And at the time, I was the United States champion. And I walked into catering, and I saw sitting at a table Dusty Rhodes, it was Magnum TA, Dusty Rhodes, JBL, and there was someone else sitting at that table. Barry Windham, I think it was. And I thought to myself, it took me a few moments before it actually hit me. But as I looked over and I saw Magnum TA, that's what triggered it. Wait a minute. I'm the United States champion. All of those men are former United States champions, legends in the industry. I remember when Nikita Koloff beat Magnum TA in the cage for the United States championship, and the despair that the Russians got the U.S. championship. And fast forward, but wait a minute, I can take my place at that table with those men. I'm the current United States champion. So for a while there was a bit of a disconnect, until I realized, oh wait a minute. So the same way, some youngsters were watching Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff, some youngsters were watching me. So it was very special to be able to be added to that list of names. And then the fact that WWE let me have such a long run, where I believe Dean Ambrose recently broke my record, but until he did, I was the longest reigning U.S. champion in WWE history. So that, very longest all time. So that in itself was extremely gratifying, but because my passion lies in Japan when it comes to professional wrestling, I've said this many times, wrestling for the WWE was a goal. Wrestling for New Japan was a dream. My dream wasn't WrestleMania. I mean, not to take anything away from WrestleMania, it's the most spectacular wrestling extravaganza on the planet. But for me, my passion was Japanese wrestling. So to have an opportunity to be the first ever IWGP, thank you sir, Intercontinental Champion, and in Japan, putting titles on foreigners isn't quite so common. So to know that the legacy of that title begins with me is a very special treat, and I'm beyond honored to be able to have my name attached to that.
Perfect. Changing the subject a bit, I've read online that you were trained by Norman Smiley. Is that true? And also, and if so, what was he like as a trainer?
Norman Smiley is one of the most amazing human beings. He's in my life, I've only met a few people that I've never met anyone that has anything bad to say about them. Rey Mysterio is one of them. Norman Smiley is one of those guys. If I meet someone that tells me something bad about Norman Smiley, I'm going to punch them in the face because they're lying. That's the kind of guy Norman is. Norman didn't actually train me. I was trained by a guy named Soulman Alex G. But Norman, he refined me. Once I got to a certain point, it was Norman that introduced me to Japanese wrestling. And it was Norman that introduced me to English wrestling. It was Norman that said, here, let me show you this, let me show you that. So he's the one that kind of refined my skills and slowly started to elevate my actual execution and whatnot. But I hold him in the highest regard.
You touched upon being a fan of Manchester United. Outside of wrestling, what other sports do you enjoy?
It's funny because I'm not the rabid sports fan that I once was. When I was younger, I could quote stats. I was one of those really off-the-chain betting arguing. I got into fist fights, as a younger man about my teams. But I'm a lifelong Oakland Raiders fan. American football, I like Oakland Raiders. Basketball, I like the New York Knicks. Hockey, I like the New York Rangers. And college football, I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan. That's my team. But I've been bitten by the bug, so I'm a huge Premier League fan. And just to make sure everybody understands this, because the question always comes up, I get called a glory hunter on Twitter all the time. I was introduced to Manchester United when I was 14 years old. The guy I worked with named Victor. He was a United supporter. And it was the first team that I had heard of. So a few years later when I started paying attention, like anything, it was, oh yeah, I know that team. Yeah, okay, that's the team I like. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know anything about the Premier League and the history. Nothing about it. That was a team I recognized. And then years later, when I actually started following with the newspaper and became a huge fan of Eric Cantona, I said, okay, yeah, that's my team. But when I started as a United fan, there wasn't so much glory to be had. And as far as being a glory hunter, as I said, I'm a Knicks fan and I'm a Raiders fan. We haven't had any glory in decades. So.
Another sport that I wanted to question about was boxing, because you had the very memorable segment with Evander Holyfield on Saturday night's main event. What was it like being in there with one of the greatest world heavyweight boxing champions of all time? And did he pull his punches? Or was it a proper KO show?
No, he's an amazing athlete. And it's funny for me because for years I used to say that I thought Evander Holyfield could beat Mike Tyson. People told me I was crazy. I didn't know what I was talking about. I said, oh man, I'm telling you. And I remember specifically the fight that Mike Tyson had with Tony Tucker. And Tucker took him 12 rounds and actually thought he won the fight. And I thought if Evander Holyfield, whose natural style was similar, if he fought that kind of fight, he could beat Mike Tyson. Now granted, when they fought, it wasn't the same Mike Tyson, but being in the ring with him, a guy who was one of my favorite fighters, it was pretty special. And as far as his punches go, boxers are the best punchers in the business. So when it comes to control of their body, yeah, they're special. So I could say that I was absolutely fine afterwards.
Touching back on your time in Japan, I know you mentioned quite a lot of this anyway. The final for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship was one I've recently showed to the camera guys. This is one of my favourite matches that I've seen from your Japanese career. Against Toru Yano, it was. Who was your favourite opponent over in New Japan?
Off the top of my head, I'd probably have to say Shinsuke Nakamura. Okay. And Shinsuke is really just an amazing talent, man. He's phenomenal. He's on another level. He's a current IWGP Intercontinental Champion. He's had it for quite some time now as well. But there are so many guys over there that I say all the time, like Fergal Devitt, when he was there, Prince Devitt.
Yeah.
I used to say all the time, he's probably one of the greatest wrestlers you've never heard of. Hopefully that'll change now for him. But there are so many guys over there that I enjoyed working with. Machine Gun Anderson, great talent. Of course, Tanahashi, who, if they ever were to make a Mount Fuji, if you will, of greats, he'd be on it. I had a chance to wrestle Okada in the IWGP Intercontinental title tournament, and then not even a couple years later, about a year later, he went on to be now the franchise for the company, and just another tremendously gifted talent. But for me, the special highlights were being able to wrestle the legends that I looked up to when I was an indie guy watching tapes. Guys like Tenzan and Kojima, having matches with them in the G1 Climax was just mind-blowing to me.
Next question is kind of similar. It's what would you say is the biggest moment of your career so far? I know you've touched on New Japan as your dream, which I'm assuming probably covers in that question.
It's tough because my career has been filled with so many amazing highlights. Of course, wrestling in the Tokyo Dome, which was a dream of mine. When I first started wrestling and I decided, okay, this is what I want to do, my goal was, I still have a newspaper article where the first interview that I did, where the interviewer asked me what my goal was, my dream, and I said, man, I'd like to wrestle Chono or Tenzan in Tokyo Dome. And again, not a slight to WrestleMania, but just my attention was on Japanese wrestling. That's what was focused. But wrestling Ric Flair at Madison Square Garden, his last match in the Garden, my first, that's tremendous. Beating Chris Benoit in 2 straight falls for the United. Wrestling Chris Benoit at WrestleMania, who was my in-ring idol, the guy that I looked up to stand across the ring from him at WrestleMania. I have to pinch myself, like, this is real, this is actually happening, this isn't a VFW hall with 30 people, this is really. So there have been so many highlights, as I said, wrestling, the final night of the G1 Climax tournament at Ryogoku Sumo Arena and having 10,000 Japanese people chant MVP. I've been so fortunate that it's hard to just pick one single moment.
Okay. In 2 weeks' time, you'll be facing Eric Young for the TNA Championship at Slammiversary. What are your thoughts going into the match for that? Are you hoping that that's going to be another one of your big moments?
It's going to have to be. First of all, it's for the company title, and it's the first time in my career that I've main evented a pay-per-view. A couple times in WWE, once or twice. I think I was a co-main event. But this is a statement match for me, for the company. This is Eric Young's, and this is his time, and I respect the hell out of him. As a matter of fact, I told him, I remember my first trip through TNA as an extra, working as Antonio Banks, trying to get a job. There was a handful of guys there. There were not even a handful. There were just a few guys that stood out that I remember that were very nice to me. As a no-name extra just trying to get a job. And Eric Young was one of them. Talk show. She was a great guy. He was just, at that time, he was just getting started and glad to have a job. And all these years later, our paths met again, and now he's a champion. We're going to face each other on opposite sides. So yeah, it's a huge moment, and I think with his tenacity and his expertise in his craft, and mine, and then both of our desires to put on a match that the fans are going to talk about, it's a huge moment, and both of us know that there's a lot of pressure on us to deliver for this anniversary match. But I, for one, look forward to it.
Excluding, obviously, the matches that schedule, like for example, your match with Eric Young, who are you looking forward to facing most in TNA?
It was funny, before I came to TNA, I made it known that if I came there, because we had discussions on and off for quite some time about me coming there, I made it known, if I come there, there are 3 people that I absolutely must work with. Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle, and Bobby Roode. I've had a match with Bobby Roode in Wembley, and I enjoyed working with him. It was our first time, and I thought we had a good match. So I can only imagine how good it would be if we had a program. Samoa Joe is a great friend of mine. He's a guy that I've been wanting to work with back since our indie days. And of course, if you lace up boots, you can't not want to wrestle Kurt Angle. So those are the 3 main guys that I'd like to have an opportunity to have a program with.
If you could face anyone from any active promotion at the moment, who would you like to face, or would that be the same guys?
I was going to say, again, I'm so fortunate that I've wrestled just about everybody that I've wanted to wrestle. All of the legends in WWE, the main guys that I wanted to wrestle there, Undertaker, Rey Mysterio, Batista, just go down the list of great guys, legends that I've had a chance to work with. Japan, I've worked with all their top guys. And now, here at TNA, it looks like I'm going to have an opportunity to work with all of their top guys. So I can't think of anybody. There's nobody off the top of my head that I would want to work with that I won't be able to, or that the possibility doesn't seem realistic.
And obviously you've also been through like the developmental system of OVW, I believe it was.
Actually, it was DSW.
Deep South, sorry. What was the difference in crowd reactions? Because we've heard that quite a lot of the Japanese crowds will just be silent throughout the match and then applaud at the end. And so is that still true of most of them these days?
Yeah, but that's a misconception. In the beginning of the match, the crowd would be very silent. And I used to say all the time in WWE, I used to joke with Undertaker about it, and I would say, before I hang up my boots, before it's all said and done, at least once in my career, I want to hear, "Whoa!" And I've been fortunate enough to hear that a number of times in the time that I spent in Japan. So Japanese fans initially will be quiet because they're watching, they're focusing, they're paying attention. But as the match builds and the excitement builds, so does the energy, so does the response. So in the beginning, matches are very quiet. But when you hook the fans, Japanese fans are no different from any other wrestling fan. And they scream, and they boo, and they cheer, and they get excited, and they get involved. So you really have done something when at the end of a match, towards the end, you can hear the Japanese crowd really responding. And again, it's another milestone that I've been able to experience.
Finally, who would you say was your favourite opponent of all time and why?
Of all time. Well, that's almost like saying, who's your favorite supermodel to shag?
Fair enough.
It's like, again, when I think back over my career, I just think about how fortunate I've been. I wrestled The Undertaker, I wrestled Chris Benoit, I wrestled Kojima, I wrestled Tenzan, I wrestled Rey Mysterio, I wrestled Batista, I wrestled Shawn Michaels, John Cena. You just go down the list of names, I've wrestled all of them. The ones that are technically great and the ones that are socially great. So it's tough, but if I had to narrow it down, man, it'd be. I learned so much from working with Undertaker. Undertaker is just that's like going to grad school, you know. But I think if I had to pick one, if you twisted my arm and made me pick one, it would be Chris Benoit, because he was my friend, he was my mentor. He took an active interest in my career personally before I got signed. And he was the guy that went to John Laurinaitis and asked him permission to have 30-minute matches with me on the live events every night.
Wow.
So we would get to the building, do 500 squats, run the stairs for 20 minutes with a weighted vest, and then have a 30-minute match that night. And Benoit couldn't remember. And he would tell you, I don't like to talk about stuff, let's just go work. And we had one. This was my crown. This was my graduation. We were in Vienna, Austria, and the night before in Italy, he said, "Hey, listen, I want you to do me a favor tomorrow. I want you to call the match." He said, "I'm going to do whatever you tell me to do. You're the heel. You're supposed to lead the match, and we'll fix it afterwards." And we went out, and keep in mind, I wrestled Benoit thousands of times. You know, when I was at the club at my post, you know, not paying attention to the party and goals. I was in Madison Square Garden. I was in Rio Goku with Cork and all. So I knew his matches inside out. I knew everything he did. We had a great match. When I came back to the curtain, Dean Malenko came over to tell Chris what a great match it was, and Chris turned to Dean and said, "No, that was him. He called that entire match." And he told me how proud of me he was. And now he said, I trusted you, respected you before. He said, but now I know I have complete confidence that I can just relax and let you go on the match. And being that Chris Benoit was my in-ring idol, and regardless of how his life and career ended, you can't dispute that he was technically, arguably, the best in-ring technician of all time. To have him give me that kind of praise, and then afterwards I remember stepping into the dressing room, and Undertaker was getting taped up by the trainer, and he looked over and said, "Well, little brother, looks like you had a graduation tonight. Congratulations." And if you're a young guy coming up in the business, and you have those two guys give you a stamp of approval, then you're made. I mean, what else is there? So I probably have to say Chris Benoit.
Thank you very much for taking the time. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. For all the information.